Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors. Today is Tuesday, April 6th, 2021, and we are meeting at 1:03. And Director, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call, please?
Yes, President Rosario. Director Lane?
Here.
Director Wieskamp?
Here.
Director Eccles?
Here.
Director Coffey?
Here.
Director Waspy?
Here.
Director Corbett?
Here.
And President Rosario.
Here.
And then I'm going to call our staff, General Manager Landreth,
Here.
Deputy General Manager Ana Alvarez. I saw her here. Assistant General Managers Carol Johnson, Jim O'Connor, Chief Chiobaro, acting, hi Carol, acting General Manager would be Jeff Rasmussen and Matt Graw. And I believe that's all of our, oh, and then of course, Eric Fuller, our Government Assistant, District Counsel Carol Victor. We are fully staffed.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start with, I believe, Director Corbett. I've asked to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Someday. And I believe, Director Corbett, you also have an acknowledgement of a tribe in your area.
Yes, I would like to honor and acknowledge the Hu-Chin, who came long before us, who were the caretakers of the beautiful lands along the grassy hillsides of the East Bay, stretching from Berkeley to the south, cared for the wetlands, and the shoreline, and just appreciate them for being here long before us and understanding the importance of stewardship of the land. And thank you, President Rosario, for allowing me to acknowledge the peoples of the area that I represent.
Thank you. Today's regular meeting is held in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order, allowing for board members to participate remotely. And we are also providing live audio and video streaming and have provided the public the opportunity to submit written comments and call in for public comments, or on an item on the staff report to call in and leave a voice message. Public comments may be submitted one of three ways. And Madam Clerk, Yolanda, could you please explain?
Yes, President Rosario. Members of the public can submit email to me at yburial@ebparks.org. They can call at the number that's on the agenda, 510-544-2016, or they can simply join the meeting today by Zoom.
Excellent.
To submit their comments.
Excellent, thank you. Do any board members have any questions about meeting procedures? Seeing none, a motion is in order to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Director Lane, and seconded with Director Wieskamp, I believe. All those in favor, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote, please.
Yes, President Rosario. Director Lane?
Aye.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
Director Eccles?
Aye.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Waspy?
Aye.
Director Corbett?
Aye.
And President Rosario.
Aye,
Unanimous approval of the agenda.
thank you.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, President Rosario, we do. I actually have 16 people slated to speak or letters to be read today. I don't see all of them on the meeting, so I'm going to do the best that I can. Would you like me to read the letters first, or would you like the speakers to speak?
Let's hear from the people first.
Okay, certainly. The first person that I have, and it's in no particular order, it's just in the way that I receive the comments, will be Dr. Dawn Nuamu. and I apologize if I did not pronounce your name correctly. Ma'am, you have 3 minutes, and this is how, just to let everyone know that I'm going to stop my video. When you have about 30 seconds left, you will see my face pop up. Okay? Thank you. You can speak, Ms. Duomo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time today. My name is Dr. Dawn Wamwo, and I'm a native of the Bay Area. I support naming this park Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50, in lieu of just Port Chicago 50, as it encompasses so much more. The civil rights impact that Thurgood Marshall had in this country includes Port Chicago 50, but also includes things such as desegregation of the military and advancement of opportunities for Blacks within the military, desegregation in schools and in society, as well as the amplitude of rights he fought for across gender, race, socioeconomic status, and cultures, including Native American rights in the US during his years as a lawyer and Supreme Court judge. Furthermore, having a park named for a hero who stood up for what was right and was not punished for it, like the Port Chicago 50, MLK, Malcolm X, and Angela Davis, just to name a few, paints a very positive imagery and not one of a martyr being recognized. This park would provide African Americans a sense of pride when reflecting on a great man in history that led great change and can amplify African Americans in a positive light. African Americans need to be seen in a positive light. The way people are portrayed affects the implicit biases that others internalize, and in turn affects how they are treated, whether that be positive or negative. African Americans are not treated in an acceptable manner, largely in part to the negative implicit biases and stereotypes against them. This park naming will start changing the narrative for African Americans by exemplifying a positive and excellent leader. The inspirational significance for the African American youth in publicly acknowledging an African American leader who played an instrumental role in promoting racial equality during the civil rights movement would make these children and their community feel more welcome, included, and valued. The impact will also be great for all ages and all cultures to learn about the history of the country and how the civil rights movement unfolded after the stage was set by the events that occurred for the Port Chicago 50. In summary, naming this park Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50, addresses a much broader perspective in the realm of education, instead of the narrow scope of just the Port Chicago 50. It can attract many more to the park with this broader name and teach a broader history through education on the civil rights movement in America, with this park having the potential to be a focal point of education through field trips for schools across the Bay Area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker that I have is Marquita Price, but I do not see her in the Zoom. So the next one will be Lewis Thrower. Sir, you have 3 minutes. There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm Lewis Thrower, Citizens for Historical Equity. The following public comment is a collaborative statement from Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, NAACP East County, United Veterans Council, and Citizens for Historical Equity. Dear esteemed East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors, thank you for your good work caring for our regional parklands. We know you are aware that heroes define our ideals and aspirations, and recognizing our nation's heroes of all races is key to building inclusive, equitable, and productive communities. Although names on our regional public lands should reflect the values of society, they often just reflect the values of those who are in power. This perpetually leaves people of color without acknowledgement of their representative heroes and diminishes the significant sacrifices and contributions people of color have made to our region. The East Bay area is severely lacking in Black representation in regional park names. There are currently 0 regional parks in Contra Costa County named to honor Black culture or history. This lack of representation has a detrimental effect on the self-esteem and pride within our communities and results in many underserved citizens feeling uninvited and unwelcomed in our regional parklands. Unfortunately, there is now a unique opportunity to honor national Black history at the location where so many Black Americans died serving our country at Port Chicago Naval Magazine. This former military base located in Contra Costa County is the site of the Port Chicago disaster, the World War II explosion that killed 320 sailors, officers, and civilians. In the aftermath, many of the Black surviving sailors were ordered to resume handling the same dangerous munitions that caused the explosion. 50 servicemen bravely protested the unsafe, segregated working conditions of the military base by refusing to load munitions until additional precautions were taken. They were unjustly charged with mutiny. NAACP's Thurgood Marshall tirelessly worked to defend the 50 servicemen and advocated to end the vicious policy of segregation that contributed to the death of the 320 men. Together, these civil rights pioneers were instrumental in desegregating our US Armed Forces, a pivotal step in our journey to national integration. In the interest of honoring the national heroes in history of Port Chicago Naval Magazine, a coalition including Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, NAACP East County, United Veterans Council, and Citizens for Historical Equity has united to unanimously recommend Concord Hills Regional Park be named Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50. This park is supported by a petition of over 850 citizens and has been endorsed by regional organizations, churches, museums, veterans, and historians. The Black Employee Collective of the East Bay Regional Park District Workforce Diversity Committee, regional NAACP branches, Black Cultural Zone, Black Mecca Museum, PACT, Village Keepers, Richmond Historical Society, Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Center, Marcus Shelby, and authors Robert Allen and Steve Shankin are just a few of the many supporters of this recommended park name. The Port Chicago 50, whose civil rights protest predates Rosa Parks and the Montgomery boycott, should be revered for courageously standing up for equality. Honoring the Port Chicago 50 will give voice to the patriots who lost their lives in the explosion and bring renewed context to enhance and serve their legacy. The lives of all the men who perished in that tragic explosion had profound meaning. The explosion that cost these men their lives was a catalyst for a regional civil rights movement that echoed throughout the halls of the White House and forever changed the country for the better. That's a momentous legacy we cannot allow to be forgotten. Supreme Court Justice and NAACP Chief Counsel Thurgood Marshall represents the highest ideals of our country and is a shining symbol of equality and justice. As a champion of civil rights, he advocated for environmental, racial, and social justice, including Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. These themes resonate throughout the many stories that will be interpreted at the Future Visitor Center. Thurgood Marshall is a hero and inspiration for future generations. This enthusiasm and support for this naming recommendation continues to grow. As former Park District GM Robert Doyle said, quote, "The story is not a Contra Costa story. It is a national story. And I don't know anywhere in the district where we've had an issue of a national scale. This is probably one of the most important decisions in the Park District's history," end quote. Recognizing the sacrifices and contributions of people of color by naming this park after Black patriots will serve as a beacon to the Bay Area and to the entire country that the East Bay Regional Park District values and welcomes Black visitors and honors our veterans and the cultural stories of the lands. For these reasons, we respectfully ask the East Bay Regional Park District to declare Concord Hills Regional Park be named Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50. Signed, Citizens for Historical Equity, Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, United Veterans Council of Pittsburgh, California, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP East County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thrower.
Thank you
Our
very
next speaker is Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial President, Reverend Diana McDaniel. I know I saw you there. Diana?
is there just
Looks
a
like I
second.
know she was there just a second ago. I'm sure maybe she dropped off. She'll come back. We'll just reserve her spot. And then the next speaker will be Mr. Willie Mims, NAACP. I saw you there. You have 3 minutes, sir. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Video.
Yeah.
Do you have my video? Because
No.
We can hear you.
No, but we can hear you, sir.
Okay, because
All
I
right.
can't. Okay. Willie.
There you
There we
go.
go. My name is Willie Mims, and I am here representing East County NAACP. I come today urging the board to remember the 320 or more sailors, 200 of whom 202 were Black, who died during that Port Chicago explosion. Their memory and service to this country should not be left to the cesspool of American history. 50 of those African-American sailors were punished because of their refusal to risk additional losses to both themselves and to the other sailors. Something bad did happen at that Port Chicago Navy base. The town itself and the people who lived there, the memory of that incident should not be lost. The memory of Port Chicago itself should not be lost. The memory of Thurgood Marshall, the chief counsel of the NAACP, should not be lost. At one time, all along the waterfront and also the Concord Hills, all of it was called Port Chicago Naval Weapons Station, with the name change coming later. Therefore, the East County NAACP stands shoulder to shoulder with all of those organizations in support of renaming the Concord Hills Regional Park to the Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of Port Chicago 50. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mims. Welcome back, Reverend McDaniel. I see you made it back in. I know.
My power went out and
Yeah.
the browser, I went, oh my God. Just
Okay.
him.
That's okay. So you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Greetings to President Rosario and the Board of Directors of East Bay Regional Park District. I wanted to first say thank you for all the good work you do. I'm reading a letter from Robert Allen, the author of the Port Chicago Mutiny, and he was a founding member of the Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial. And he writes, "Dear East Bay Regional Park District's Board of Directors, it is very fitting for..."
Uh-oh.
Oh, you froze. You froze, Reverend McDaniel. I actually have a copy of that letter, so I'll read it after we get to, oh, there you go. You try it one more time? No. Okay, let me read the letter after we get to that part, okay? So just put yourself back on mute. Thank you. The next speaker we have is Yulie Padmore. She's next. I believe there she is. Yulie.
Hi.
Hi, you
Sorry.
have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, apologize. Having a little technical difficulty here.
Do you want me to come back to you?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Constance Taylor. You have 3 minutes, ma'am. Hi.
Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today I have a letter from AFSCME Local 2428 in support of the Black Employees Collective and many others' efforts to rename Concord Hills Regional Park to Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50. On July 17th, 1944, a huge explosion at Port Chicago Naval Magazine killed 320 civilians and soldiers, 202 of whom were African American. It was the largest home front disaster of World War II. This segregated military base was where many enlisted Black men who had been denied their request to fight overseas were assigned to load explosives onto ships under unsafe working conditions and without adequate training. Part of the lax safety precautions came from the white officers making bets regarding which group could load munitions fastest. Additionally, servicemen were told that munitions were not active and would be armed later. After the disaster, Port Chicago servicemen were ordered to return to work loading munitions under the same conditions at Mare Island. 258 Black servicemen initially refused to return, citing safety concerns, but were threatened with the charge of mutiny, which in wartime can lead to death by firing squad. In the end, 50 servicemen held out in their refusal and were found guilty of mutiny and sentenced to 12 to 15 years of hard labor and incarceration. Thurgood Marshall, then the chief counsel of the NAACP, spearheaded an advocacy program that captured the attention of the nation during and after the trial and was integral to eventually freeing the Port Chicago 50 and paving the way for desegregation in the US Navy. However, the Port Chicago 50 never received an official exoneration. The fight to exonerate the Port Chicago 50 continues, and the proposed name pays tribute to those who put themselves on the line to demand an end to discrimination in all military assignments. The National Park Service Port Chicago Naval Magazine National Memorial has begun to make the story of the Port Chicago disaster more visible, but there is very limited public access even without COVID restrictions. The East Bay Regional Park District can further amplify the significance not only through increased public access to the land, but also by naming the park after the very individuals involved in changing American history after the Port Chicago disaster. In working toward more equitable practices in regards to whose stories are made visible, what we name areas matters. Though the East Bay has a rich history of Black culture and achievement, only one of the district's 73 parks is currently named after an African American. Honoring Thurgood Marshall and the Port Chicago 50 in the park name will double that number, make this important piece of national and local history more visible, and work to further the district's stated mission to stand in solidarity with Black Americans. Additionally, the renaming of Concord Hills Regional Park to Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50, will act as a beacon to anyone who looks at a map. Even if they are unfamiliar with the park, the name alone will illuminate exactly what took place and point to the seismic effect it had on national policies and racial justice. AFSCME Local 2428 adds our name to the long list of community organizations and over 700 individuals who support this renaming, such as NAACP East County, Citizens for Historical Equity, the Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, and the United Veterans Council of Pittsburgh, California. We look forward to seeing the story of Thurgood Marshall and the Port Chicago 50 visible on the map of both our cultural and physical landscapes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Constance. Our next speaker is Denisha Marsh.
Good afternoon.
Hi. You have 3
Good
minutes.
afternoon. Hi, my name is Denisha Marsh, and I represent Parents for African American Achievement Collaborative Team. We are located in Pittsburgh, and this is naming the park is a great opportunity right now with our ethnic studies coming aboard and our environmental justices that are being taught in our education system. So I believe that this park would make a great segment for our students to not only partner with, have leadership classes with, tour, field trips. It will give them a great opportunity to learn about the civil rights fights that were right here in our community. And I want to acknowledge that we don't have a lot of places for our local children to learn about their history. And this will give the Regional Park District a great opportunity to support educating our students further. So I support in the naming of our Concord Park to Thurgood Marshall, home of the 50 park. Thank you. You guys have a great day. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh. Yuli, are you available? Ready now? There we go. You can start reading. Yuli? Okay. She must be having some technical difficulties. Diana, Reverend McDaniel, I see that you came back in. You want to try to read this one more time, or would you like me to read it for you?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
This is the letter from Robert Allen. Dear East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors, it is very fitting for the new park to be named for Thurgood Marshall, an officer with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in New York. Marshall volunteered his assistance to the accused African-American sailors. Although not their legal representative, who were lawyers appointed by the Navy, Marshall met with the sailors to assure them of his help. He also met with their appointed defense attorneys. As a civilian, Marshall could speak freely to the press and to the public on behalf of the sailors. After their convictions, it was Thurgood Marshall who took their appeal all the way to the Secretary of the Navy and ultimately to President Franklin Roosevelt. In the end, as a result of Marshall's efforts, the sailors were granted early release from prison. Ironically, they were put on Navy ships as sailors in newly integrated crews for a term of sea duty before finally being released back into civilian life. The outcome of the struggle for desegregation of the United States Navy was the beginning of the integration of the entire U.S. military. Thurgood Marshall played a key role in this democratic sea change in the American military and American society in general. Signed, Robert L. Allen, PhD.
Thank you.
And
You did it.
I did it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is, Yuli. Yuli, are you ready? Want to try it again? You will be the last speaker on this subject, okay? Mm-hmm.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, well, good afternoon, Board of Directors. I hope everyone can see me okay. My name is Yuli Padmore, proud member of the Black Employee Collective. The Black Employee Collective thanks you for your ongoing efforts to preserve our parklands. As employees of the Park District, we ask the Park District to work in a manner that will best support and respect all Black, Indigenous, and people of color. As a leader in the environmental community, the Park District must create equal opportunities for all communities. The story of the Port Chicago disaster was at the forefront of the Park District's annual invitations, public announcements, and communications to local politicians regarding the district's stewardship of this land. These district events and land conveyances, where Contra Costa communities gathered in ceremony to commemorate the fallen servicemen, were held on the anniversary of the explosion that left the ashes of our brave national patriots buried on this sacred ground, now within your stewardship and our stewardship. Since the explosion, our country has continually attempted to dismiss the story of the unexonerated Port Chicago 50, whose voices bring life to the 320 men, 202 of them Black, who died on July 17th, 1944. Concord Hills is the only land in the Park District stewardship with Black African-American history of regional and national significance of record. It is the only appropriate place to name in honor of that history. As stated at the November 6, 2020 board meeting, the Black Employee Collective supports naming Concord Hills to honor the national.
You are gone, Yuli. Your connection is gone. So if you could send that to me, that would be great. Maybe before the end of the meeting, I can read it, but right now, it's not looking good. So sorry about that. So anyway, we have two additional letters that came in. One is from Wilfred Scott. And Mr. Scott, I see you are in the meeting. So I didn't know if you wanted to read your own letter or did you want me to read that? And okay, so I'm just going to read it. So it says, Dear Honorable Park District Board members, my name is Wilfred Scott. I am representing United Veterans Council, and I support renaming Concord Hills Park to Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50. As an African-American veteran who served his country here at Port Chicago Naval Magazine, I urge the East Bay Regional Park District to honor the unrecognized heroes who lost their lives and those who risked their lives, to maintain freedom and equality for all Americans. Thurgood Marshall and the Port Chicago 50 represent the highest ideals of this country, and their brave and selfless stand against the injustices of segregation serve as an inspiration to all generations and all communities throughout the Bay Area. United Veterans Council stands in solidarity with AFSCME Local 2428, Black Employee Collective, Workforce Diversity Committee, Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, NAACP East County, Citizens for Historical Equity, and all the citizens who support honoring the national Black history of Port Chicago. I thank you for your consideration and hope the unanimous, enthusiastic public support for this park name is helpful in reaching the Park District's stated goal of diversity and inclusion and community engagement. It's signed Wilfred Scott, United Veterans Council of Pittsburgh, California.
Thank you,
And
Ms. Knight.
you're welcome, sir. And then the next letter I have from Steve Shankin, who's the author of the book, The Port Chicago 50 Disaster, Mutiny, The Fight for Civil Rights. And he writes, Dear East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors, I am writing to express my enthusiastic support for the idea of naming a new East Bay Park in honor of Thurgood Marshall and the sailors who served at the Port Chicago Naval Base during World War II. I am convinced that the young Black men who became known as the Port Chicago 50 should be seen as civil rights heroes, alongside such figures as Rosa Parks and Jackie Robinson. They quite literally put their lives on the line to stand up against racism and segregation. These men may have been convicted of mutiny, but with the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to see that it was our government that was in the wrong for its racist treatment of Black sailors. Thurgood Marshall made this point eloquently in his legal arguments on behalf of the sailors. And I would argue that President Truman as much as conceded the point with his order to desegregate the military in 1948. Ultimately, in different ways, both Thurgood Marshall and the young sailors of Port Chicago pushed our country to be better, to move closer to fulfilling the ideals in our beautiful founding documents. It would be entirely fitting to honor these American heroes by naming this new park in their honor. And that is the last speaker on this topic. Just let me do a quick check. Yuli, were you able to come back in and just finish? I see you there, but I don't know. You want to try, just finish the last part of your statement. If you remember where you were at.
Ma'am.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so despite the initial exclusion of the Black community and its leading Black organizations in the naming process, we applaud the Park District for reaching out to our Indigenous brothers and sisters. The process of outreach should continue in an attempt to be more inclusive in our park naming practices. The Black Employee Collective supports naming and renaming parks, lakes, and trails to honor our Indigenous brothers and sisters while including Indigenous stories in all our interpretive sectors. As you know, heroic acts and significant events in our history can be lost over the generations if we don't take steps to preserve them. Our country's earnest attempts to honor Martin Luther King Jr., Harriet Tubman, and Rosa Parks were all met with forceful and impassioned attempts to block that history from being honored. Even recently, attempts to remove the name of a noted KKK leader from a bridge in Selma, Alabama, to honor the civil rights icon John Lewis was met with fierce opposition. Likewise, those who have worked tirelessly to permanently recognize the patriotic servicemen of Port Chicago have been met with opposition. The Park District's public pledge to permanently protect the National Black History of Port Chicago requires naming the park purposefully and emphatically to honor that history. To that end, Black Employee Collective has united with NAACP, Friends of Port Chicago National Memorial, United Veterans Council, Citizens for Historical Equity, Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Center, PACT, Village Keepers, Black Cultural Zone, Black Mecca Museum, Richmond and Emeryville Historical Societies, jazz musician and composer Marcus Shelby, authors Robert L. Allen and Steve Shankin, and over 850 survey respondents in requesting the Park District honor the national Black history at Concord Hills by naming the future park Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50. The East Bay community has reached the kind of public consensus that could not be achieved in Selma. The enthusiastic community support for this park name has reached a magnitude that exceeds anything in recorded Park District history, and remarkably was achieved with minimal district resources. This is an opportunity to represent the diverse tax-paying citizens we have pledged to serve. This singular park site is the appropriate place to name in honor of our national Black history, and we are fortunate to have so many regional parklands that can honor Indigenous culture. We sincerely look forward to your future efforts to acknowledge and recognize Indigenous people and the many diverse communities we serve. We thank you for understanding how important this land is to our Black African American history, and hope this overwhelming public support will make the naming process a celebration of our mutual regional history. Sincerely, all of the Black Employee Collective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yuli. Finally finished. Okay, it's wonderful. So our next speaker is going to be on a different topic, and I believe I see Cecilia Theus. Cecilia, if you could, I don't see her anymore. She's gone. Okay, then we'll move to Chris Newey. There you go. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. President Rosario, Board of Directors, General Manager Landreth. My name is Chris Newey. I'm president of ASME Local 2428, the union that represents a majority of the classifications at the East Bay Regional Park District. Last Friday, an email came out of the general manager's office titled "All Staff Update on Holiday to Honor Cesar Chavez." I appreciate the Park District for sending information on this important leader, but to be honest, the district doesn't celebrate Cesar Chavez Day as a Park District holiday because the Park District wanted to honor this hero in the labor movement. The Park District celebrates Cesar Chavez Day as a district holiday for some district employees because ASME Local 2428 gave up Columbus Day during the 2013 negotiations to gain Cesar Chavez Day as a district holiday. In fact, the original proposal from the union was to add Cesar Chavez Day as an additional holiday. The district celebrates Cesar Chavez Day because ASME was willing to sacrifice. This is relevant because earlier this year, employees approached you, the Board of Directors, and asked to pass a resolution celebrating Juneteenth as a district holiday for paid time off for staff and maybe waiving parking fees or some gesture for the public in order to honor the end of slavery. The response that we got was that to bring this issue to bargaining. Well, we are now bargaining. And now the district's representatives, in response to ASME's proposal, is to sacrifice Lincoln's birthday to get Juneteenth. Out of all the agencies from the Ralph Andersons and Associates ASME 2428 study, the East Bay Regional Park District was third from last to the total number of holidays offered to its employees. How can we continue to talk about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion and offer little to no equity to the employees, especially AFSCME Local 2428 members. We are supposed to be leading, and we are not. Please offer equitable amounts of holidays to your workforce, honor Juneteenth as a paid district holiday, and publicly honor Juneteenth as an important historic day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker, Cecilia, you've come back on. You have 3 minutes. Do you want to try it again? Cecilia? Okay.
Oh, here I am.
Okay. All right. You have 3 minutes. And I can't hear you.
Oh, let's see.
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
This is because Cecilia got a new cell phone and she hasn't figured it out yet. I'm sorry.
Okay, we have 3 minutes for you to begin your public comment, ma'am. Oh, we can't hear you, Cecilia. Oh, we might have to have you send an email. I'm not hearing you at all. There you go. Continue. You've got a few minutes. Okay, I think we're having like some connection problems. I'm gonna move up. We're gonna move on, and then you can send an email to us, and I'll ensure that the board members receive it. So we're gonna put you on mute, and we are gonna go to our next speaker, who is Jennifer Bossett.
Hello, thank you for your time. I'll just start off with saying I'm not sure if this is the right place for me to be. I just have one question, I guess, or a suggestion, as well as I want to bring to your attention an issue I had with some of your staff today. So if this is not the correct place.
Okay, Jennifer, please just make your comment. You have 3 minutes, ma'am. This is the proper place. Yes.
And thank you. My first thing that I want to advise you about is I've been trying for several days now to just get a reservation at Sylvan Park at the Little Farm. So I understand that space is limited, time is limited, but it's very, very difficult to make a reservation with only 2 weeks availability. Every day that I go on, it's too late. Everything's been booked. So I did call and ask if a reservation could be made over the phone, or if the windows could be made open for more than 2 weeks, which I was laughed at multiple times by Sarah Federley, which I feel, hopefully you guys can address that, because I don't feel like your staff should be laughing at anybody who's calling to voice a complaint or a concern or anything like that. But my question is to ask you guys to also look into the possibility of opening up the window for more than, I was advised by Sarah that there have been several complaints that it's due to the limitations that it's very difficult for people to get a reservation. And so I'm just hoping you guys can, one, look into the possibility of opening that up a little bit more into the future, and then also maybe address the issue with the customer service. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Jennifer. Director Rosario, that concludes the public comments.
Excellent. I just, any comments from the board of directors? Questions?
President Rosario?
Yes.
I know we're not supposed to discuss topics that aren't on our agenda, but I feel really strongly about the proposed name for the station. And it has to do with my concern, and I'm a history nerd, right? It's a hobby of mine, and that is the potential for historical inaccuracy, because that land that we have really wasn't home of the Port Chicago 50. It was added to the base after the war ended, and I'm just troubled by that, and maybe some people can get me some feedback on that.
Great. And then my question for staff is, do we know when this is next coming to the executive board, the issue of Concord Naval Weapons Station renaming?
Yes, President Rosario, I apologize. I don't have a date for you. I did talk to staff about it yesterday, and we are definitely will get an update to you as soon as we can. But I don't have a date right today.
Okay,
They're working on it, and we'll get you an update as soon as we can.
great, thank you. Director
Mr. Chair,
Corbett.
I just wanted to see if the clerk, since other people had difficulties with their connections today, if she could just check one more time on Cecilia Thies to see if she's able to speak. We gave other people the opportunity to check back in as well.
Yeah, I think I saw
So
it.
just check
Sure
her one
thing.
more time and see if her technology is working. And if not, we can move on.
Okay, Cecilia? Okay, there she is. Cecilia? You are unmuted, ma'am. I don't think it's working, Director Corbett.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for,
Okay, I'm so sorry.
thank you for checking.
Okay.
Okay, that concludes our public comments. And that puts us at puts us in line for a special update, item C. General Manager Sabrina Landreth, welcome.
Great. Thank you, President Rosario and directors. We have some good news. The governor just this afternoon has announced that Contra Costa has officially moved into the orange tier. So that's very good news. That means that as of today, both counties are officially in there. He also did just announce this afternoon that he's targeted a June 15th date, where the entire state actually will dismantle the colored tier systems, the county by county system, and essentially reopen. Now it means I think the details are forthcoming, and I can pretty much bet that we will have masks and some restrictions on some other indoor activities, but I think that is all positive signs that the state and certainly our region are moving in the right direction, and fingers crossed that we continue to adhere to the public health standards and don't see the fourth surge that some other states are seeing. In terms of the vaccinations, I think you all know that as of last week, Contra Costa officially opened up vaccinations, or anyone over 16 was eligible. And then for Alameda, it's anyone over 50, age 50. And then starting on April 15th, that will actually, everyone over age 16 in both counties will actually be eligible to receive the vaccine. So again, very encouraging news. We are certainly promoting and encouraging our own staff to go ahead and get their vaccine. We are being very flexible and providing up to 2 hours per appointment for them to go ahead and get that. I want to go ahead and turn it over to AGM O'Connor in just 1 second if he has any other updates in terms of our reopening plan. But I also just want to go on the record again and just thank the whole team as we continue to go through and learn as we're going. And really, there's just their flexibility and adaptability and trying to maximize reopening things in a really safe manner for our staff and for the public. So they're just doing absolutely tremendous work, continue to do so. So Jim, I don't know if you want to give a more specific update on the reopening.
Thank you, Jim Landreth, and good afternoon, President Rosario and members of the board. Just really quickly, I think you all know this is a very evolving situation with the state guidelines. In fact, new guidelines just came out this weekend. Staff are evaluating that, and I plan to share that with our COVID Emergency Operator Center briefing tomorrow afternoon. So we're working on that, and I'll have some more details on that. But we are working to reopen. And this past week, we reopened several of the visitor centers at 25% capacity. And I think that was good news and well received by the public. So I'll have more information later this week coming out to all of you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. So that concludes item C, and we are now on item D, business before the board. And Madam Clerk, do we have any questions on the consent calendar?
We actually did have questions from board members. They were all answered, I believe. So I'm looking at Director Lane, I'm looking at you. You still have your, let's see.
I just have a comment on H.
Yes, you have a comment on H. So that's the only thing that I see from the board. Director Eccles? Director Eccles is recusing herself.
Yes, from item G.
G, yes.
And then I just wanted to pull item D just to be read, the resolution to be read by the board.
Yes. And President Rosario, we did have a public comment on item D and item E.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and hear those.
Public comments.
Yes.
Kelly Abreu, commenting on item D, the resolution denouncing racism, and item E, the resolution reaffirming the existence of a district emergency. And you have 3 minutes on each topic, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good that we're talking about reopening parks. It's also good that the directors are some directors know that you're not allowed to discuss items, and it'd be nice if your staff knew that you're not allowed to carry out actions in response to directions from one of those unpermitted discussions. These two resolutions reaffirm the state of emergency, one of them, and the other one restates the open and inclusive nature of the parks. They are inclusive and welcoming. The resolutions reject physical barricades that exclude local visitors from walking into our regional parks. The resolutions put public health first during this pandemic. They radically reorder the legal environment to conform with the basic philosophy and history of jurisprudence. And that includes force majeure and emergency powers. And there are several lawyers on this board, so they should know what all that stuff means better than me. Your vote to approve these two resolutions carries weight with district management, with organized labor, AFSCME Local 2428, and with the public. I urge you to vote yes on these two resolutions. Thank you. I'm done with everything.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abreu. That's all the public comments. Director Rosario.
Before we go to D, let's go ahead and hear item G. Oh no, that
was item H for a comment from Director Lane.
Yes.
Mhm.
Director Lane.
Yes, thank you. This item has to do with a new website redesign for the Park District, which I think is very timely. But I wanted to weigh in on behalf of seniors who read these websites. I am finding that they are not taken into account when websites are put together. Either the font is too small, and you cannot always make it larger, by moving your fingers on it, or because of design qualities, often designers seem to think that it's fine to have yellow lettering on orange backgrounds. And so what I want to suggest as we plan this is that you take into account the fact that these websites not only need to be attractive, but they need to be legible for everybody to see. This has become a pet peeve of mine in all kinds of settings. And I think we're talking about inclusivity, and we need to remember that the seniors who are an increasingly larger group sometimes don't have the same vision capabilities as other people. So that's just my comment going forward, and I appreciate your listening to me on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move to item D, which is the resolution denouncing racism, xenophobia, and violence against Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, and reaffirming the East Bay Regional Park District's commitment to a safe, welcoming, and inclusive workplace and park system. General Manager Sabrina Landreth, would you like to introduce that?
President Rosario, we're going to show that on the screen if you'd like, just after General Manager speaks.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to say, really just on behalf of all of the staff at the district, we really do appreciate the board publicly reaffirming your values here and during this time of really horrific anti-Asian violence and racism, and really just to ensure not just a safe and welcoming park system, but really for me and something that I carry every day here, making sure we have an inclusive and safe workplace for everybody, and really to celebrate the rich diversity of our region here. So I just wanted to say, just as your general manager, we really do appreciate you bringing this forward.
Thank you. Now, Yolanda, if you can put that on the screen. I invite the board of directors to we will read each whereas and resolve, and I will start with the first person on my screen, Director Lane.
Shall I read the resolution or the whereas?
The first whereas, please.
All right. Whereas the East Bay Regional Park District is committed to ensuring that our organization, our parks, and our programs are safe, welcoming, and inclusive places for people of all races, ethnicities, national origins, and backgrounds, and
Director Wieskamp.
Whereas for more than a century, xenophobia, bigotry, and discrimination have been directed toward Asians in California and across the United States with tragic consequences. And
Director Corbett.
Whereas since the outbreak of the coronavirus disease COVID-19 in March 2020, harmful xenophobic rhetoric related to the geographic origins of this disease encouraged prejudice and discrimination against Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders, and
Director Wasby. You're on mute, Director. Director, you're on mute.
Okay, whereas since the outbreak of the coronavirus in March 2020, harmful xenophobic rhetoric related to the geographic origins of this disease encouraged prejudice and discrimination against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and
Director Coffey.
Whereas recently there has been a surge in incidents of racism, threats of violence, and violent crime against AAPI individuals, both locally and across the country. And
Director Eccles.
Whereas AAPI individuals are rightly concerned about their safety and well-being, given the rise of hate crimes and other racially motivated attacks. And
whereas on June 16th, 2020, by resolution number 2020-6-132, the Board of Directors denounced racism and pledged solidarity with Black people and all people of color, and affirmed that the East Bay Regional Park District's commitment to promoting racial equity within our organization, our parks, and our public spaces. And Director Lane.
Public spaces. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District condemns racism, xenophobia, and intolerance against Asians, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders. And
Director Wieskamp.
Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District reaffirms its commitment to ensuring a safe, welcoming, and inclusive workplace and park system for people of all races, ethnicities, national origins, and backgrounds free of racism, discrimination, and threats of violence. And
Director Corbett, the last resolve, please.
Be it further resolved, the general manager is hereby authorized and directed on behalf of the district and in its name to execute and deliver such documents and do such acts as may be deemed necessary or appropriate to accomplish the intentions of this resolution.
Thank you very much. So now we have our consent calendar ready for vote.
So moved.
Reminder that we're pulling item G.
Correct.
Still so moved.
By Director Corbett. Is there a second?
second,
Director Wieskamp, second. Director. Madam Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Director Lane,
aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Corbett,
Aye.
and President Rosario.
Aye. And now we'll return back to item G.
Director Rosario, I'm not sure if we need to comment that we are moving the consent calendar minus item G.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the passing of the resolution against the hate. I don't, as a society, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of a society are we living in where it's easier to kill than to ask for forgiveness or ask for help? And I think I appreciate this board stepping up on behalf of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in this recent spate of discrimination and active acts of hate. So I think it's important that everyone stand up, and that's the only way that we get beyond this. So thank you so much all to everyone. With that, we go to
I'd like to move we adopt item G on the consent calendar.
okay.
It was removed from consent.
Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second. I think that's all I'm doing today, but I'm willing to second.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please, on item G.
Yes, Director Corbett,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
President Rosario,
Aye.
and Director Eccles is recusing.
Yeah, I'm recusing. And just quickly, I'll just say I'm recusing myself because PG&E is a regulated entity by the PUC. And while the organization that I lead, the Public Advocate's Office, is independent of the PUC, we have a relationship with them. And so just in abundance of caution and being conservative, I am recusing myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And that moves us to item 2 on the, which is the Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Division. And 2A is authorization to execute a contract with Belfour Property Restoration and Dagan Kolb Engineers Incorporated, acceptance and appropriation of a partial payment of insurance funds from PRISM, and appropriate and transfer funds for the response to Vasco Shop Fire Project, Vasco Hills Regional Preserve. District Council, Carol Victor.
Carol Victor, thank you, President Rosario, members of the board. This item is to begin the process of rebuilding the Vasco Hills shop that was destroyed in a fire. Ren Bates from Design and Construction Department is going to make a presentation.
Thank you, Carol. Director Rosario, members of the board, staff, and public that are here, it's my pleasure to present this item. If you give me a second, I will share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see this. Please let me know if you can't. The item before you is, as Director Rosario said, is to execute contracts, accept partial payment, and transfer funds. Here is the recommendation. I won't read this for everyone's benefit. It is here and it is in the staff report. So there are 4 items on this action. Now I'll get into the project location and history and where we are and how we got to here. This image is hard to tell, but here is our Vasco Caves Preserve, and this is an area, this is the shop area and workspace. It also has a horse arena here up further for Vasco Hills that services all of this area. Sorry, the location is here. And here's Vasco Caves Regional Preserve, Vasco Road. On July 16th, 2020, there was a fire that basically destroyed the workshop and caused a lot of smoke damage to the stables that were in use. These are integral infrastructure. This infrastructure was here, I should say, firstly, when the property was acquired by the district. And so it was existing infrastructure that the park district now uses. The shop is utilized by park staff to maintain and keep the park open, and the arena and horse stables were utilized by our mounted public safety for both their unit and the volunteers. So these are some shots from the evening of the fire. Here's an assessment the next day, and it shows the damage that was done. You can see there's extensive damage, which required basically a full demolition of the shop and those stable buildings. To that end, at that point in time, the district's insurance provider deployed Belfor, who's a large contractor that does a lot of these restoration projects and is approved by the insurance provider to begin demolition. Part of that is permitting. And so permitting takes quite some time, and typically we would expect maybe a 3-month turnaround process for this. This did take 5 months. The district wasn't super involved with this. It was Belfor who was pulling this permit. We provided support, so I can't speak to the permitting process, but it was a 5-month period. So it was lengthy kind of for permitting. That said, the site is now cleaned up. So basically what happened is in September, the insurance provider gave Belfor the go-ahead, and at that point they engaged for the demolition permit, which was finally issued in February, at which time Belfor took site and began demo on the 23rd of February, I believe. And they were completed pretty much at the beginning of March. So they were out there for probably 2 weeks to complete demolition. And so here's the site with those buildings gone. Everything has been cleaned up and we're beginning to move forward. So that's what brings us to our action today in front of the board. What we'd like to do is authorize contracts for design and engineering services to replace the workshop and stables that were damaged. The action will get us under contract with Belfor, who will be the contractor. Will also get us under contract with Degan Kolb, who will be the engineers that will prepare drawings for the district for reconstruction. Both of these vendors are approved by the insurance provider, and as such, staff has recommended we go with these vendors. We will have to have plans for the insurance to approve most of those costs, and then we'll get into construction and workshop of the stables. This image here shows where the former building was, and you can see the damage here. As a reference point here are these 3 green tanks, and this is the cleanup. So you can see them here, and this now area, which is here in this aerial photo, is all clear and ready for preparation. So in terms of that, we need to enter an agreement with these vendors so that we can continue on with the process and project. This is an electrical shed that's houses the pumps for these tanks. As I stated, this site is integral to operations, and the public safety uses it for their for trainings and whatnot here in the horse arena that's here. So again, the recommendation and the action before you is to authorize executing a contract with Belfour Property Restoration for the emergency demolition and building repair. The demolition has been done, so we're entering into building repair. Authorize a contract with Degenkolb Engineers to provide services to make up drawings for those repairs. Authorize acceptance of the partial payment of insurance funds. So what happens is usually the insurance is wired over some money to get us going on this. We're also part of this action authorizing transfer and appropriation of money from the general fund into this project. And the intent is once we get into construction that the insurance company will reimburse for those funds. So this will give us project funding to get started. And then as we proceed, insurance will reimburse that money as it's approved and moved forward. With that, that ends my presentation. I will bring down the share and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Director Corbett?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Ren, for that report for this important facility. Did you say that insurance, I wasn't quite clear. Will insurance eventually pay for all the costs for the rebuilding of these facilities? Or will we need to supplement it with general fund dollars?
I'll defer to Carol. Looks like she's ready to answer.
Okay.
So, Director Corbett, Carol Victor. Insurance will pay for the minus the $25,000 deductible. We expect insurance to pay for the replacement buildings. There's if there's any what the insurance company would consider betterment, like an improvement, like if we added additional office space or did something. Then that might be subject to a negotiation with the insurance company. So we look at that very carefully, and the insurance company does this as well. But our expectation is that it will be 100%. Minus the $25,000 deductible, 100% covered by insurance.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Waspy?
Yeah, I guess I got a couple of questions, Ren. So how'd the fire start? And if in fact we need to rebuild it with stables with horses and our mounted patrol unit there, is there a requirement for sprinkling the building? Because I assume there were no sprinklers in there in the past.
Those are good questions. As I understand it, the fire investigator concluded that there was a bad compressor in the refrigerator that was in the shop and it overheated. So that's my understanding. I don't know whether or not, I can't answer your question as to whether there will be requirement for fire sprinklers as of yet. That depends on, we'll find out more of that as we get into permitting and code and how that will go. I'm not familiar and I don't know. We'll find that out as we proceed with permitting and design.
All right, thank you.
Director Wieskamp.
I think that is really an excellent question because I don't believe anybody's on site 24 hours a day. And if there are horses left over there overnight, I certainly would want to make sure they were safe. I happen to be an individual who in Livermore City, as a city councilwoman, voted for adding sprinklers to the houses right before we built one. So I think it's worthwhile to look into that carefully. This is an isolated location, so I certainly hope that can happen. I certainly support this revolution.
Yes, and thank you for that, Director Wieskamp. We will make sure that it is a safe facility, and we will not we'll look into all of this fire sprinklers. And as I understand it, the stables are not used for permanent overnight storage of horses. They only are there as temporary during the usage of the arena. So in other words, the horses are trailered in, used, they're let to rest there, but that's not a permanent housing for horses there. But that said, we will definitely make sure that the facility is safe for both the horses and the staff that's out there and the improvements that we're making so that they are safe from future accident.
I can only say from past experience, uses change in our facilities. And at some stage, it may be quite appropriate for horses to be there overnight. You could add it later, but we added that great water system there, and thank goodness it seems to have survived. It strikes me, it shouldn't cost that much to put the sprinkler system in. If we possibly could, I would advocate for it. And I will, without able to reach Chris Lyle today, who I know pretty well, and I can tell you that he is going to be a very happy camper that we have passed this. Staff has done very well, but that is really a much needed facility. And they've worked hard to keep things going, but I know it hasn't been easy. So thanks for putting a very complicated resolution together. Thank you.
Great. Any other, Director Lane?
Yeah, I will just second that. I know they're more than ready to see this be demolished, which took a while, and rebuilt so that they can work again the way they did. So thank you.
Okay. I take that we have a motion and a second. Is that correct?
I would like to move the resolution.
I'll second it.
What a surprise.
Any further discussion before we take a vote? Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote.
Yes, President Rosario. Director Corbett?
Aye.
Director Waspy?
Aye.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Eccles?
Aye.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
Director Lane?
Aye.
And President Rosario.
Aye.
And unanimous approval of item 2A.
Yay.
Great. Yeah, moving right along.
Yes.
And now item number 4, or number 3, you should say.
Yes. It comes after 2.
Oh, well, come on.
I know. I think that's General Manager. Yeah, Mr. Fueler.
I think I will start us off here. We are moving right along. Great efficiency. So you, as the board is aware, you have your annual conversation with your federal legislators next week. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's going to occur virtually again this year. And we have our government affairs staff here to give a presentation just to go through the priorities and talk about kind of how those meetings are going to be structured. So I'm not sure if it's Lisa or Eric, which one of you wants to start us off here?
I guess I'll start. Eric Fueler, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs. And thank you for the introduction, General Manager. And also wanted to thank both Peter Umhofer and Lisa Baldinger, who are here on the Zoom today, as well as Yuli Padmore and Fallon Stuckey for all the preparation. We're trying to adhere to our practices as usual, even though the meetings will be virtual. So we've been developing materials and schedules the same as we always do. And it's even virtually, it's a lot of work. So today we'll show you a quick PowerPoint with a slight overview over the issues. And the first thing that we'll discuss is the attendees and agenda. Next slide, please. You'll be receiving a memo like this no later than Thursday that will give you the overview agenda for the meetings, and behind it is also talking points on each issue. We think we learned from last year maybe to try to simplify in our debriefings with the board, to try to simplify some of the issues and the asks. So we did reduce the number of issues to 3 main ones and then 2 additional should electeds have time. And we'll be going through each of those issues, but just as an overview, we have the forest health and wildfire prevention, particularly with the compromised and tree mortality that's occurring, our build grant proposal, and the current infrastructure package that's being debated. And then if there is time, we would like to talk about conservation corps and the COVID-19 relief funding that we have yet to receive. So with that, I think we'll start through the issues. The first one I will do, and then I will hand it over to Lisa, and Peter here is also here to answer any questions at the end. So the first one, as we mentioned, with forest health and wildfire protection, it's really asking for money for FEMA. And FEMA does administer grants to the Park District for our vegetation management in the East Bay Hills. They have a program called the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. And that is basically the pre-disaster mitigation package of funding that they renamed. And then we're also making an ask for $100 million for the tree mortality and vegetation removal. As we've discussed, one park alone, Anthony Chabot, is probably $30 to $40 million in vegetation removal costs. So when we mentioned something to this effect to Senator Dodd at the state level, he said, "You're not asking for enough." So we decided we would for $100 million. So with that, I think I will hand it over to Lisa for the other 4 issues, and then we can have a conversation at the end.
Thank you, Eric. Lisa Baldinger, Legislative and Policy Management Analyst. And just to give the board a few more expectations of what to expect as we're approaching the DC days, you will be receiving copies of all of the flyers that you see on the screen before you. The goal of the flyer is to give that in-depth information on background on the subject, but also to be used by the legislative staffers to do further research on each item that we bring up. And you'll also receive the talking points and agendas that Eric referenced earlier. So for the build grant discussion, the talking points will outline what we want to share with each elected office, our long history, though many of our electeds are now very familiar with our district. Some of their staff who will be in the meetings providing support are a little bit new, and then it's also always a good idea to refresh the memory. So sharing the strong history of our 200 miles of paved active transportation trails serving 2.8 million East Bay residents, sharing a little bit about what we've been experiencing during COVID with about a 50% increase in trail usage across the district as folks are using our spaces to get out and enjoy some fresh air. We'll be highlighting the Park District's historic success with the 2010 Tiger II grant program, where we received $10.2 million for active transportation connections. And with that success, we'll shift that into the district's 2021 build application and how we know we can deliver these projects. We've done it before and we want to do it again for the benefit of our community. And so we'll be sharing with them that we are preparing a 2021 build application, and we'll have an ask of each elected official to please call our transportation secretary and send a letter on the behalf of the Park District. Our third item is infrastructure and economic recovery. So when it comes to our infrastructure projects, we will be sharing with the elected offices our nature-based infrastructure, particularly related to our 55 miles of Bay Delta shoreline, which is protecting our inland East Bay communities. I will also share a little bit about the history. So our next slide will be our Conservation Corps slide specific, but this is an area we can expand a little bit should we not be able to get to that later agenda item. So sharing how in the 1930s and 40s, it was the Conservation Corps and the Work Progress Administration that really built those initial facilities for the Park District. But those facilities are aging and they need some investments, some love, and some repair. And so using that to also share more recently the assessment of our infrastructure projects and how, though we've understood for years that the end deliverable is increased access and services for our communities, we also now know that through the process of their creation, over 1,000 jobs are supported and millions of dollars are then returned back into the economics of our communities. And so our ask here is to make sure that special park districts are eligible for infrastructure and economy recovery funds, and also to please support park infrastructure funding for investments in restoration, resilience, and adaptation, particularly in a changing climate. So these next 2 slides are ones that either could be folded into the conversation. So Conservation Corps could be folded into the wildfire discussion or the infrastructure discussion, or should time allow on the agenda, we would like to dive in a little bit deeper. So we want to make sure everyone is well briefed. So when it comes to Conservation Corps and youth employment, we want to share with the elected officials that East Bay Parks it has great success in being the largest annual employer of youth in the East Bay, providing opportunities for jobs and experiences across our region. Share some of our survey data in terms of support for youth jobs, and then understanding the need for safe vegetation and trail management across the district. And then, of course, we want to make the note that the Park District supports the efforts like the Outdoor Restoration Force Act, the Climate Conservation Corps, and the modernization of the Civilian Conservation Corps, which we could then implement within our parks for the benefit of both the youth jobs as well as for our parks themselves. So our asks for the elected official on this topic are to ensure, again, that special park districts are eligible for the national service legislation, and then also to ensure that participants in the program are reflective of the demographics where the projects are being conducted. And then lastly, we could see this either coming up at the beginning of the meeting as part of the small talk, asking how COVID-19 has impacted parks, or we can conclude the conversation with sharing a little bit about the surveys that we've conducted during COVID-19 in terms of how the public has responded to our parks, been supportive of our parks, and have an overall awareness and use of our parks. Also noting that we were asked to stay open by our county health as an essential activity during this past year. And then we want to highlight that we have incurred about $3 million in non-personnel costs directly related to COVID-19, and make the ask to ensure that special districts qualify for the coronavirus relief fund legislation. So those two pieces of legislation are noted, the Senate and the House of Representatives bills. And then also, if our electeds are comfortable, ask them to please contact Governor Gavin Newsom to direct the American Rescue Plan state and local assistance funding to special park districts. So with that, that concludes our overview briefing, and we'd be happy to open it up for dialogue.
Questions from the board? Director Lane.
I do have a question about infrastructure inside the parks, and am wondering, as usual, about the Point Pinole courtyard. Now, we are all set up to have that courtyard be connected with utilities, and we have not done it. And this has been going on for years. This is what, page 108 in our budget for this year. And so I am wondering if you can fold in anything that would assist in doing something for our internal courtyards.
Thanks, Director Lane. Yeah, I would think that park infrastructure, I think, is the word we used in the materials, but I would think we could also have a specific conversation with Representative Mark DeSaulnay about that particular facility. There's another item that isn't on the agenda here, but they are bringing earmarks back. So that's also another avenue potentially with our representatives. If we can't get it into the package, we could perhaps ask for a direct appropriation for that project.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, because staff has been living with a courtyard that's totally inadequate for probably decades. And you could put together a little information on one example of how this is ready to go, but is going nowhere for at least a couple of years, if then. And right now we have to use general fund money. So if we could support staff there, I would really appreciate it.
Excellent. Any other board members want to weigh in? Director Corbett.
I have a little bit more of a general question, but along the same lines of, bringing in resources for the park district. At some point, will we have the board have a more specific briefing about the Biden infrastructure plan? I know there's a ways to go. It has to go to the houses and get passed and all that, but can we have a presentation on that? And then I'm sure Peter and Eric and Lisa are thinking about how the projects we have will link in with that. There may obviously be even additional opportunities than those that are focused on with this package. But I'm assuming there's going to be some possibilities for other things on our wish list with that. I don't know. And maybe we can have a briefing at some point on that.
Director Corbett, yeah, we would be happy to provide a briefing either to Ledge Committee or to the full board. You're correct, it is still evolving, a work in progress. But I think there are going to be additional opportunities. I think since we're doing the virtual meetings next week, it's just making sure that we're eligible.
Yes.
and not excluded. But I do think that we'll be getting more into the weeds on specifics of the package.
Yeah, and I'm assuming probably at those meetings, there'll be some additional information shared with us by our elected officials about where they see it going. But I'm just hoping, I'm sure that's another step past this, but from what I'm hearing, if all goes well, there'll be some really great opportunities coming to all over the country, but especially to California, and some infrastructure needs, which I'm hoping we can take advantage of as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will ask mine. This goes to infrastructure. I'm hoping that under restoration, that do you think Lake Temescal and Jewel Lake would be eligible as projects under restoration?
Potentially, that might actually be a good question for Peter to chime in on, but you would be specifically referring to dredging, I think, correct?
You're close.
I mean, I see no reason why it wouldn't. I mean, why we couldn't advocate for it.
Okay, great. Hopefully.
Director Rosario, in terms of the specifics of what activities would be eligible, that, as Eric had noted, would most likely be eligible, but the scope and scale of the legislation is still being shaped in real time. So the short answer is yes, but to be determined as it moves its way through the legislative process. This could be a very, very broad piece of legislation, covers a variety of different activities from, or it could be, they could decide to break it up into pieces and deal with certain segments of the economy, or just deal with a transportation bill first, deal with other portions later in the fall. So it's a real-time conversation, but I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. There's hope. The eternal hope.
Yeah.
Director Corbett.
I could ask Peter another question. As the bill develops, and I know there's discussion already about what some of the buckets will be in the legislation. Will you be able to share with us the major subject areas so we can start focusing towards projects for those?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's talk, as Eric had noted earlier, about earmarks not only in the appropriations bill process, but also earmarks potentially in this infrastructure transportation bill process. They haven't worked it out yet. They keep talking about it, but they haven't provided the details yet. So that may be another place to seize the opportunity here in the legislation. So, but I'll be happy to work with the team here to provide as much detail as possible on the larger infrastructure plan and legislation as it's developed.
Keep us updated. Are there any major subject areas yet you see moving out from the list, moving forward? Obviously, there's the transportation ones, but connectivity and technology, I hear, will be big. Are there any other big subject areas that we might be interested
I only
in?
hear of adding new subject areas rather than areas coming out, but the White House's infrastructure plan that it announced about a week or so ago is pretty all-encompassing in terms of across the economy and across the needs for the country, down to the very local level, from wastewater infrastructure to broadband to traditional transportation and everything else. But I assume at some point in this legislative process, some things might be part of a second phase bill or a second bill. This might be a two-part bill, if that makes sense. More traditional transportation up front, some other items would be dealt with at a slightly later date in the summer. So I only see things being added at the moment, Director Corbett, not being taken out.
Okay. So what's been added?
The short answer is literally every sector of the economy is in the plan to start with, and it's only a matter of what's in part one and what's in part two. So anything that's being added is what's already in the plan. It's a matter of subtracting now, probably not adding what's eligible. Because almost everything that you can think of related to infrastructure, related to the park district, many of which those kinds of projects and activities are eligible. But I suspect dollars and cost are going to become a factor at some point. So it will become a smaller bill at some point. And so there will be less eligibility probably.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. I think, oh, Director Eccles.
Yeah, just briefly, I'd just like to thank the team for putting together the schedule. It'd be a little different than last year, but glad that we're still able to connect with our legislators virtually at least. And I had a quick question. My technology was cutting out during the beginning, so I don't know if you actually went over the schedule, but so if you did already, I apologize, but I was just wondering, are we going to have the opportunity to actually meet with the Department of Transportation and Department of Interior again, or is that underway, or what's the plan on that?
Yeah, Director Eccles, we're still putting together the schedule as we go. The dates are the 14th and the 15th, and we have some preliminary thoughts about who should go to what meeting, and we would send those on to all of you, and would hope that you could provide feedback if there was something that we had set up that you want to go to, or something that we had thought maybe you should attend or participate in that you don't want to. We'd be happy to have those conversations, but it's still kind of a work in progress.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you for all your hard work on it. Appreciate it.
Director Lane.
Yeah, thank you. That same time, I'm going to be at the California Trails and Greenways Conference. So as soon as you know when we are talking to Congressman DeSaulnier, I would appreciate knowing when that is. Thank you.
That one might have actually come in today. Peter, Elisa, did you? I thought we saw something from Mark's office. Well, we'll get it to you, Director.
Yeah, I mean, and no rush. I just want to know. So,
Director Coffey.
Yeah, so Eric, did we take Congressman Thompson out of order just to accommodate his schedule? Or was that a separate meeting?
Yeah, I think that we are not likely to have another meeting with him next week. I think it was primarily to accommodate his schedule, but I think it was basically the same type of meeting that we'll be having next week.
On these same topics, and for the benefit of my and Dee's colleagues, the meeting with Congressman Thompson went incredibly well. He's just, he was supportive from the word hello, and it was just a really nice experience to go through.
Peter.
Dr. Lane, the meeting with Congressman DeSaulnier is on April 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
okay, thank you.
Great. I appreciate, as usual, the legislative team for putting all this together, and also giving us a heads up. And it's pretty. This technology age allows us to be in two places at once.
Well, Director Rosario, even with that, we may still end up having to split up. So. I did want to comment because I mentioned this to our exec team last week, but to Director Coffey's point, some of the quotes from Representative Thompson were, anything I can do to get things done for you, let me know. You can count on me to do that. You guys do great work. Help in any way I can. Let me know if I can help in any regard. So that was pretty good.
Did you sign it?
We have it on tape.
Yes, everything's on tape.
Great, thank you so much. And we look forward to meeting our Washington trip virtually, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And now we are at number 4, board and staff reports. And 4A is actions taken by other jurisdictions.
All right, that's me again. You can read the details in your packet, but just to give you, we have one update on actions taken by other jurisdictions. On March 16th, the Richmond City Council adopted their final mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the San Francisco Bay Trail at Point Malate. It's good news for the 1.25 mile portion of the trail. They also authorized the city manager there to move forward to put the agreements together with the State Coastal Conservancy to accept the $1 million in grants for the construction of that segment, which is also great news. So I believe that means that both pieces for the full 2.5 mile portion has all the funding together, and the district and the city will work together on bidding the total 2.5 mile segment as one project. And if you have specific questions about that, I'm sure staff can answer them.
Great. Questions from the board? Good news.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now, gentlemen, we have a staff presentation, I believe. Number 5.
Yes, we do. Just briefly, we also have, we're going to have a presentation by our finance team here, but you also have in your board packet an update on public safety from the month of, I guess it's from January 21st to February 20th. And I'm sure the chief is here if you have any specific questions on that. But I do want to go ahead and turn it over to our assistant finance officer, who is here. There you are, Michelle Strassen-O'Hara, who will give us an update on the department's progress in transitioning to a remote working environment. Michelle or Jeff?
This is Assistant Finance Officer Jeff Rasmussen. I'm acting for Deborah Ocker, who's on a much needed vacation. But yes, with that, I'd like to turn over to Michelle Strassen-O'Hara with our finance presentation.
Great, thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, President Rosario and members of the board. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, I'm Michelle Strassen-O'Hara, Assistant Finance Officer, and today I'm very pleased to present an overview of the district-wide services provided by the Finance Department and highlight some of the innovations and accomplishments achieved over the past year. I'll start with a brief overview of the department. We have 20 staff members in finance, with the largest group being in accounts payable with 5 staff members, followed by our payroll unit with a team of 4. We also have a general ledger group, accounts receivable, budget, and internal audit groups, as well as administrative staff. I was hoping to just briefly introduce a few of them now, if they could come on camera. We have Linda Tubbs, who leads our accounts payable team. And we also have Shamli Kankam, who leads our payroll team. We have David Sumner, he oversees the internal audit unit, and Christina Crosby, who is our budget manager. So they've just made very significant contributions over the past year, and I just want to recognize them as they've really contributed towards the success of our department. Okay, So, and this is just another view of our finance department. We have three main functions. We have budgeting, which includes investment management and debt administration. Again, internal audit, which includes field audits and contract review. And then our accounting unit, which includes payroll, accounts payable, and financial reporting. In terms of achievements, the Park District continues to be recognized for financial reporting and budgeting by the Government Finance Officers Association, receiving awards for the past 19 and 16 years, respectively. The Park District also received its certification from the California Municipal Treasurers Association for its investment policy. The Park District's innovations in technology over the past few years greatly contributed to a smooth transition when we had to move to remote work last year at the onset of the pandemic. The district provides online time card reporting, which is accessible from employees' home computers or smartphones. All employees are set up with direct deposit or pay cards, and the entire payroll process is now 100% paperless. Employee Online allows employees to access their pay stubs, W-2s, and other resources remotely. And our accounts payable unit has paperless invoice processing with workflow routing for online approvals and electronic ACH payments for payments to retirees and other vendors. And we set up a new online payment portal last year as well with our bank, and that allows us to accept electronic payments. And this has been especially helpful for receiving payments from retirees and construction permits in particular. And also last year was our first year with a completely remote financial audit. We had new auditors from Brown Armstrong last year who conducted all their final field work, testing, and all their procedures remotely. And also towards the end of last year, we completed a complete financial software upgrade, and we conducted all our software testing and staff training online in the months leading up to it. We're especially grateful to our IS department for supporting us in all these endeavors. So finance touches a lot of different transactions and processes. We work really closely with our HR department with not only payroll processing, but also implementing new laws, such as last year's Families First Coronavirus Response Act. We work with them on implementing and interpreting MOUs, processing retiree medical payments. And we're also part of the EOC teams, the logistics and finance teams, overseeing the tracking and reporting of COVID expenditures. Finance provides training and support to ASD on contracts and project budgets. And last year, we worked very closely with operations on processing refunds for the canceled summer programs and with public safety to prepare for and budget for ongoing capital needs, and with lifeguard services to assist with their onboarding of their seasonal lifeguards. Finance also collaborates with the Regional Park Foundation to administer the membership sales at select parks and also manage the grant tracking. Finance coordinates the Park District's budget development process each year, which is guided by the 2013 master plan and includes updated goals from the district's performance measures. Priorities identified in the board workshops are also incorporated to develop this important policy document. Last year, we made several improvements to the project budget, such as more detailed project descriptions and information on future appropriations and the status of projects at year end. So customer service is really key to our department. Our helpful and friendly staff supports our internal and external customers in a number of ways. We provide, again, timely and accurate payroll and vendor payments. Again, we have all the payroll related pay stubs, W-2s are all available on our employee online portal. And we provide a number of district-wide trainings and internal audit services. And also at the end of each year, the Finance and Management Services Division sends out a customer service survey, to all employees to help identify areas for improvement and also requests for future trainings. Results from our last accounts payable survey indicated excellent or good overall, with the highest ranking of 93% in courtesy and professionalism. And other areas such as promptness, accuracy, clarity of process were all in the 80 to 90% range. Finance's internal audit unit consistently receives excellent or good feedback for their customer service. Some of their accomplishments last year included completion of 19 internal audits, review of more than 500 contracts, preparation of the statistical section of the district's financials, providing technical support for selection of contractors and concessionaires. Other survey results indicated the Park District staff wanted more software training in Finance Enterprise, which is our latest upgraded system, specifically related to purchasing and invoice payments. So in response, we've created several training documents and videos in the accounts payable group. Accounts payable group has also created some hands-on remote training that we're going to be rolling out next month as well. Some additional trainings that we're going to be doing are around payroll and time card trainings, budget planning workshops, project budgeting, cash handling, and online video trainings for credit card holders. We had approximately 125 respondents to our survey this past year, and we received a variety of feedback and comments. I'll just read a couple of them. Despite COVID, it's as if they're still in the office. And customer service is excellent, and I applaud the team who selected Finance Enterprise as our new financial system. So some nice feedback there. So in closing, the Finance Department consistently presents strong financial and budget reporting and is on the cutting edge with technological innovations. We regularly review and update our finance procedures to ensure strong internal controls, and we prioritize training programs based on feedback from our surveys and other identified needs. We are looking forward to another great year. So that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Thank you. You could take down your share so I can see the screen.
Oh, yes, sorry. Very good.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Director Corbett?
I would just say it's such a pleasure to serve on the Finance Committee, which I have for, I think, almost every year I've been on the board, because of the professionalism that is exhibited by the work that you all do. And I think it's so nice to have this report because there's so much behind the scenes that you do that keep the Park District going. And there's been so much wonderful innovation, going paperless on payroll and such things over the last few years. So congratulations, especially during these, unusual times. You guys haven't missed a beat, and we appreciate the really important work that you do, keeping track of, where the money goes and paying everybody and paying the bills and all those great things. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
And yeah, Director Wieskamp.
I really appreciate how there's been this effort to reach out to all employees to give them a comfort level with things, especially in this last year. I think the Finance Department deserves a lot of credit for that, because finance is always difficult for a lot of people. And when you try to give them a comfort level, I am sure they appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will give an opportunity to say thank you too. I think 2020 is one of those years where we get an opportunity to see just what just what each department is made of. And I think the story of your department being able to pivot from being in the office to not being in the office and doing what you do was, I think, extraordinary. And I think all of our departments have done the same, but it just seems daunting to me, the amount of effort and innovation and technology that had to go into getting it so that you guys can do your jobs and do it well. And you do it well. So I really appreciate your due diligence and your innovation and your dedication to the job. So thank you all. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, President Rosario. We really have an exceptional staff in the finance department. And again, we couldn't have done any of this without the support of IS. So I just want to thank them again.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
I think that calls for applause. All across the board. Thank you so much for your presentation, and keep up the good work. And hopefully, if things continue, we'll be seeing you soon.
Hope so.
Okay, we are now at item number 6, board committee reports. Anything from the finance committee from 226?
No, you can see we're doing really well, and we got our minutes in a timely way, and thank you to staff for that.
We have 2 reports from the operations committee, 218 and 121.
Well, I would just say that operations committee is doing very well. That's another place where we get to see the really strong work and dedication of our staff keeping the park district moving forward. So please refer to the documents in your agenda, but gives me an opportunity on behalf of the committee and the rest of the board to say how much we appreciate everybody involved with operations.
Excellent. Jim and his crew do a good job over there. Thank you. And then it's 3 o'clock. We are 10 minutes ahead of schedule.
You stole my heart.
Are there any announcements from closed session?
Director Rosario, there are no announcements from closed session.
Thank you. And now our favorite part, board comments. And this time I will start from the bottom of my screen. Director Coffey, then Director Corbett.
Okay, let's see how we do with that 10 minutes. Sorry. Actually, I was fairly busy this past month. On the 16th, I attended a fascinating session, the annual meeting and report of the John Muir Land Trust. And that organization is going full speed and pursuing properties that are consistent with our master plans, and they're doing just tremendous work. I attended on the 26th the board projects workshop prioritization session, which I thought went well. On the 27th, I was invited to represent the Park District by the American Rivers Organization. That's a nonprofit devoted to rivers, streams, and creeks, restorations and preservations. The event was for planting trees along the Three Creeks project in Brentwood. It's in phase 2, which is they've widened the channel around Marsh Creek, returned it to more natural status along this section. And I got to help plant a couple of buckeyes along the banks. On the 29th, I met with a consultant for the Rodeo Sanitary District to discuss a district project involving a solar array next to their facilities on land that I had no idea we actually owned. The Park District owns land adjacent. This is part of the Lone Tree Park, and just very disjointed land. So I referred them to Christina Kelchner. On the 30th, I attended the Ecology Committee meeting. On the 31st, I attended a fascinating event hosted by Congressman DeSaulnier with his guest Adam Schiff and Congressman George Miller. And you can just imagine how much fun it was listening to those three guys just riff on national politics for more than an hour. Just makes you feel happy about the delegation we send to DC from California. Attended on the 1st, as mentioned earlier, the federal issues discussion with Congressman Mike Thompson. And on the 1st, I attended the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference. Yesterday, I met with President Rosario and the GM to help plan for this meeting. Went out to Brioni's this weekend. Bev and I get email from equestrians discussing the conflict issues out in Brioni's involving horses and bicyclists, aggressive mountain biking. And so I decided just to go out on their direction where they're having problems and hang out in Brioni's for a few hours to see what was happening, talk to some equestrians at the site, and just get a sense of it. That's for follow-up. I took an afternoon, went out to the Carquinez Strait shoreline, where there's about 20 acres, give or take, of eucalyptus plantation that are suffering from the die-off. It was extraordinarily depressing to walk along this what used to be a beautiful grove up overlooking the Carquinez Straits and to see a lot of distressed and dying trees. But you know, you get to experience this firsthand. It is a huge issue. That's it for me, President Rosario. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Director Corbett and then Director Eccles.
Thank you, President Rosario. On the 18th, I attended the Board Operations Committee meeting. On the, I'm moving through because some of the EOC meeting, the timing of the EOC meetings has changed, so I'll skip over that. I attended, of course, the board, very informative and very well done board workshop on the 26th. And let's see, I think that's about it that I have on my schedule. Oh no, there wasn't a finance committee between now and the last board meeting, but I did want to say a couple of quick things. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to recognize the Indigenous peoples of part of the Park District in the region here in the Alameda, San Leandro, East Oakland area. I think that's been such a really nice innovation, President Rosario. Plus it gives us an opportunity to do a little research to see how important contributions of people long before us made to these regions. And I really do appreciate that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am so excited that the person who swore us in as new board members this year is now going to be the Attorney General of the state of California. So congratulations to Assembly member, soon to be Attorney General Rob Bonda, who has always had a very close relationship with the Park District. And we wish him well and congratulate him and hope he still get to have a close connection with him. Hopefully he won't forget us when he's off doing his new duties. I'm sure he won't. So anyway, congratulations to Rob Bonda. And that's it.
Director Eccles and then Director Wathke.
Great, thank you so much. So on March 18th, I attended the Operations Committee. On the 19th, I had my first one-on-one with our new General Manager, Landreth. Got a lot of work to do and really appreciate her enthusiasm and willingness to roll up her sleeves and dive right in. So thank you. On the 22nd of March, appreciate that staff, a whole bunch of folks briefing both me and the GM on the history and latest on Point Malate. And that was Christina Kelcher, Carol Victor, Brian Holt, and Sean Dugan. So thank you so much for your time on that. On the 25th, met with Eric Feeler and Lisa Baldinger on the strategy for inclusive engagement, and appreciate the opportunity to have a deeper dive on that and the work that you all, actually the whole district is doing on this. And so thank you for that. On the 26th, attended the second board workshop on our priorities. And on the 31st, attended the elected officials briefing on COVID-19 in Alameda County, which is hosted by the public health officials and Office of Emergency Services. And then I also just wanted to say thank you both to our GM and to AGM O'Connor on extending the time to keep a South Park Drive closed. We've moved it from April 1st to June 1st. The reason being that many people during the pandemic have found this just an incredibly great place to walk, to bike, to take their kids and with strollers and everything else. And you know, with the crowds, we really need as much open space in the parks as possible. I do also recognize that there are day camps that are allowed along South Park Drive, and folks will need access to those in the summertime. But hopefully we can figure out some ways to make this all work, and really appreciate the staff, you know, taking some time to look at the pros and cons and figuring out what we should do in the longer term. So appreciate all of that. And that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Director Washby.
Thank you. On the 17th, I attended the California Association of Recreation and Park Districts board meeting. And the news out of that is that we still continue. And as of today, when the governor's creates, it looks like June 23rd through 26th, we'll have a live conference in Monterey. And I think the district, if I'm not mistaken, has a few scholarships. So I encourage everybody to go to that. It should be very a great conference.
When is that again?
June 23rd through 26th.
Thank you.
I also took a great walk with General Manager Landreth up in Roberts Park. It was a lot of fun and great informative stroll through the redwoods. We both share a love for and a lot of history. On the 19th, I attended the board legislative committee meeting. On the 20th, I met with some constituents down at, well, I hate to say it, what used to be Pickering Gate. Now it's Pickering Barrier. The gate is now fenced off and troubling to me. And then I also went over to Morrison Canyon Road, where the Park District put up no parking signs along that property line there. On the 25th, the Government Affairs Department, Eric and Lisa and I met with Assemblymember Quirk and talked over some interesting things that he can help us with and is really willing to help us with. On the 26th, I attended the finance workshop. Excellent job as always. Great. On the 30th, I attended the ecology committee meeting and heard an excellent presentation on our use of herbicides in the Park District, or our continuing efforts to use less herbicides in the Park District. It was an excellent presentation, lots of facts, figures, graphs, really a great presentation. And then we also heard a presentation on the tree mortality in the Park District. And it was just it was interesting in that, well, it's fun to watch scientists talk about a problem and how they're going to deal with it and how they're going to study it. And it's also interesting to juxtapose it with the same people with the same ideas, like the fire department, which is my area of interest, where there are little different approaches to things, and but I think collaboratively we'll work together and hopefully work on this problem. And I think it'll be government affairs that'll bail us out and probably solve this problem. And yesterday I went out to line with Doug McConnell and we did some filming. It was a lot of fun. I'm sure he's a great guy. So, and I've been hiking around Lake Chabot and Anthony Chabot, and boy, those trees are still dying. That's it for me.
Great, thank you. Director Lane and Director Wieskamp.
All right, thank you. Had an interesting meeting with a high school student who had from Northgate in Walnut Creek, who was doing a special senior project on the Park District. And so that was an interesting conversation, and some technical issues trying to connect as well. I felt like I was as skilled as he was on that particular one, which is surprising. Then I went to PAC meeting, and I'm really impressed with our PAC members at the way they are asking questions and taking their position on the PACs very seriously and bringing new opinions. Once again, I enjoyed going to that meeting and hearing their questions and opinions. Then number 2 workshop I went to, which I thought went really well. Thank you everybody for that organization. And I'm on the ANZA Trail Foundation board. You know, it's a long trail from Nogales to San Francisco. And so I am doing some things that have to do with how to talk about the narratives of the Spanish invasion and the Indian tribes that they meet. And I listened to a program that one of the Indian tourist associations put together, which was presented by Andy Galvin, who I think many of us know, and who is curator of Mission Dolores. A very interesting position for an Indian in a mission. And he had a number of very, really interesting things to say. He's one of those people who has done the research on his, from whom he's descended, and he's really an East Bay Indian, and he doesn't call himself an indigenous person, I will say. So, we're all being very careful about that, but so many of the people I know who are recognized descendants don't use that term. Anyway, it was a very interesting one for me. And then in addition to that, I hiked the hill with the Partnership for the National Trail System virtually. And I want to thank Lisa for helping me connect with who the trail staff was in the area that I covered. And what I did was I communicated with them via email and Zoom, including all of the East Bay congressional members down to, and the peninsula down to Monterey, giving them the annual report for the ANZA Trail Foundation and the Partnerships Pathways magazine as well. I have to say it's not as tiring as doing it in person, but it is logistically, it's fairly difficult to put together. Did one hike in Las Trampas, and I want to join Dennis Waspy in saying my concern about access to Vargas out of the Pickering area. We are here to encourage access, not to cut it off. And I think we need to, for sure, talk to the director in that ward before we do something like that with really good explanations. And I think our effort needs to be totally in the other direction. And then Then I was gone for a week in Mexico. So I did my hiking on the beach, and I'm not quite recovered, but I did manage to read my packet for today. So thank you.
Welcome back. That was adventurous.
Yes.
Director, yeah.
Walking on the beach. I think everybody envies you. It just sounds so different. On the 17th, I had my first one-on-one with our new general manager. I've got to tell you, it still feels weird to meet and talk to someone who you've never actually met in person. So I'm looking forward to that. She certainly seems to have put both feet and her whole body into it and is meeting with everybody and going everywhere she can to get to know a very large district. So thank you for doing all that. I appreciate it. I attended operations on the 18th. 19th was legislative. And then on the 22nd, we had public affairs, and I had a meeting with the mayor of Livermore and Bob Werner. And the main item discussed was, of course, any potential funding for part of the Iron Horse Trail. We had bits and pieces in Livermore, and I think there was going to be a follow-up on staff. Well, we might not be able to get part of this grant. I think we're going to try to get the city in better position for the future on what additions they can make. It's going to take a little while. The planning workshop was good as usual. And it happened that I had a conversation with one of my park supervisors, Gordon Willie. He said Mission Peak was, as usual, busy. That in the Ohlone, he says it's not green, but a lot of the native plants are coming back. But if we don't get some rain, they may not make much more progress. And we did discuss Pickering, because I too agree that we need to get it open. But I think the feeling is, in my discussion with staff, we need to do it properly, make sure we've got garbage cans, proper access so it's safe. And I see no reason why not. I remember at our last board meeting, we had people come who were neighbors, and they thought it was great to have it there. So I think as everybody behaves and properly parks and uses the trail wisely, I think it's going to be a very nice addition that people will enjoy using from that neighborhood particularly, plus a few others. And that's it.
Great, thank you. And my turn.
Yeah.
So after the board meeting on the 16th, I attended an East Bay Mud Moraga update. They have come to an agreement, and East Bay Mud outlined repairs to that slide that's affecting our Lafayette Moraga Trail right there at Canyon and Moraga. And so it's a 2-year project. It's good. They called it a stitch and tie back project. And like I said, it's in 2 years. It's a 2-year project. They'll do the first phase. They're taking bids now. Hopefully have the first part done by November. This is also in conjunction with the Moraga's efforts to replace the temporary bridge there at Canyon. And so I'm looking forward to opening up our new trail in a couple of years. So that was really good news. And then on the 18th, Director Corbett and I met with Clifford Moss, who, as you know, they were our consultant for Measure FF, and we had a nice discussion about regarding that campaign and a little bit of a debrief and some insights into possibilities for any upcoming campaigns. And then on the 19th, I attended the Board Legislative Committee meeting. And then from the 22nd to the 25th, I attended the CPRS conference. And I have to say, this was probably the best CPRS conference I've ever been to. And very heavy presentations on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the guest speakers was just incredibly inspirational. Her name is Haben Girma, and she's deaf, blind, and she's an immigrant from Eritrea. She came as a young child, and 30 years later, she graduates from Harvard with a law degree. And it's just incredible. She gave incredible insights as to what it's like to be both blind and deaf and a person of color. And it was just amazing. And when they, I think they're going to post the event in about 30 days. So I'll try and glob on to her speech. It was just amazing. But all the presentations that I attended were incredible. And I'm looking forward to next year. And then on the 26th, I attended the workshop. Very well done. Congratulations to the team on putting that all together, and look forward to our next ones. And then I believe on the 31st, at the suggestion from Director Coffey, I attended the Adobe House restoration talk in Orinda, and I thought it was a great piece of history. They've able to raise enough money to restore the original Adobe House of Joaquin Moraga, and an 1841 structure, and it was pretty fabulous. And looking forward to having it open in a couple of years when it's completed. And that's it for me. And so, let's see, where are we? I'm so happy I did that all electronically, or digitally, I should say. My printer went out. And so, before we adjourn, any other board comments? With that, wow, look at this. We
Oh, I
are.
can't believe it. 4.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Yes.
Unbelievable.
Well done, President.
Yeah, that's my birthday gift to you.
Very popular gift. Congratulations.
But I just wanted to thank everyone for their presentations. Especially want to thank all the members of the public that came today to speak. All very important, and very happy to hear your concerns. And I'm sure the board will take all of those comments to heart. And let's see. And for next time, and Wieskamp, you're up for the Pledge of Allegiance and to acknowledge a tribe in your area.
I will do my level best to be ready.
Yay.
Yay.
Beverly said she'd help.
If there's anyone on the board I trust to give me good, sound advice, it's Beverly. We know that. Thank you.
Yolanda.
Yeah, I just wanted to, President Rosario, just to let you know that Cecilia Theas did send me an email, and I forwarded that email to you.
Okay,
she was
great.
the young woman that was unable to participate. So
Great.
you have that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and as we adjourn, I just a reminder to continue to stand up in the face of discrimination and hate, and be kind. Be kind to everyone. So thank you all. I appreciate you all very much. Thank you.
Have a very happy real birthday.
Yay.
Yes.
Happy birthday.